My guest today is an award-winning educator and historian of the Japanese-Canadian community. She's written multiple books about Nikkei fishers on the coast, one of which won Canada Council's Canada-Japan Literary Award. She was awarded an honorary doctorate of law from Vancouver Island University in 2023, and she's just written a new book called Stories of Nikkei Canadians, which tells us all about Japanese Canadians in BC. Masako Fukawa, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure to be here, Bob.
So I know that Steveston was a Japanese fishing village, but I don't know that most people know that when you go there. Can you tell us about that?
Well, actually, in 1942, when the Japanese Canadians were all relocated from the West Coast, Steveston was a flourishing community. In fact, two-thirds of the people living in Steveston were of Japanese heritage. And they had a community that started, well, when my grandfather immigrated in 1893, it was a small community with just a few Japanese. But by 1942, there were 2,000 Japanese living there. And they had, Christian churches, a Buddhist temple, Japanese language school, and a hospital.
Right, the hospital. Yes. That was the feature that came because Japanese Canadians didn't feel comfortable going to the normal hospital?
Yes. Yes. I know my grandfather, post-war, even in the 1960s, he would say to me, he doesn't want to go to the hospital because you go there to die.
Wow.
That was his remembrance of being ill. Yeah. So that hospital actually was started because of the typhoid epidemic in the late 1890s. And then it became, it was taken over by the Japanese Canadian Fishermen's Association in 1900 and built a hospital that was in operation until the 1950s. Even when we were in internment camps, the hospital was being operated. And it wasn't, I think the Richmond Hospital didn't come into being until the 1960s. So it has a fantastic history, right?
Yeah, and your father was born there?
He was born there. He was born in 1906, I think, yes. And the hospital was open to everyone. And what's really fascinating is the fact that it had a hospital insurance program where you paid a fee and then everything was covered except for certain surgeries.
Oh.
Yes.
And this was before
Tommy Douglas in Saskatchewan. Yes. So I look at it as the first medical insurance program in Canada. So there was lots for Japanese Canadians to be proud of in Steveston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then internment happened. Your father went to internment?
Well, actually, he was separated from the family and he was sent to a road camp.
Yeah.
He was a fisherman. He had a new boat built in 1938, I think it was. In 1942, it was confiscated and sold.
Yeah.
And then he was sent to a road camp, leaving my mother, myself, and my brother behind to look after things.
So you went to internment camp?
Yes,
How old were you?
I was 18 months old. And so at 18 months old, I was labeled an enemy alien.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I was born in Prince Rupert. My family home was in Steveston. And at 18 months, my brother was 6 months old, and we were labeled enemy aliens. I wasn't an enemy, and I wasn't an alien.
Kidding.
I was born in BC,
Yeah.
right? So that's how we ended up in Greenwood, a ghost town.
Oh, in Greenwood, okay.
Yes, that was turned into an internment camp. It was really the first internment camp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is fairly recent history. You went to internment camp, but I feel
Yes.
like a lot of people don't know this history. How did you do your research for it? I mean, obviously you lived it, but there are so many stories in your book.
Well, actually, I didn't know anything about Japanese Canadian history until I was at UBC, and I was in my third year when I was given an assignment, Japanese Canadian internment, and it was the first time that I saw anything in print that said Japanese Canadian, right? So I was curious, and I went into the stacks to look for material, found Pierre Burton's article in the Maclean's magazine, and the title was "They're Only Japs."
Ooh.
That was my impression. But then, as I was scared to read the article because I thought, oh my goodness, what did my parents do, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then, but the curiosity got the better of me, and I kept reading. And what he was saying was, he was being sarcastic.
Oh.
Yes,
Okay.
thank goodness.
Yeah,
Yes.
wow.
I know, because that was the prevailing attitude at the time, and
Yeah.
he was making a comment about that. And so when I went home that evening, I said to my parents, why didn't you tell us about what happened? And they said to me, for the sake of the children. Kodomo no tameni, they said to me. And they said, we didn't want the children growing up bitter over things that they had no control over.
Okay.
So that's why they remained silent. And it was only when I kept asking them that they revealed some of the things that happened to them. Yeah.
Yeah. So that seems to have sparked a lifelong interest in the history and spreading the history. And so Masako's book is out now. It's called Stories of Nikkei Canadians, Resilience in Struggle. We're going to the streets. Nina is going to talk to some people at the Nikkei Center in Burnaby.